Hi everyone, welcome to Future Ready Application Summit. My name is Sandeep Alur. On Microsoft India, I head this group called Microsoft Technical Center. I have with me Srikantan Shankaran. Srikantan.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Srikantan. I'm an architect in the Microsoft Technology Center based out of Bengaluru.
Wonderful. So, we are here today to talk about the role of technology in the world of education. Yes, technology is on a fast track, and this is a time for academia to embrace technology. And we're going to showcase a couple of experiences. And I would love to check with Srikantan, what do we have to showcase today?
Yeah, sure. I think that what I want to talk to you and show you folks about is about the classroom for the future, the notion of how things are going to be hybrid going forward. Okay, so I've just shared my screen here. What I'm showing you now is a sample application that signifies the classroom of the future. You would imagine that looking at the future, all the classrooms are pretty much going to be hybrid. The window on the right-hand side shows you a view of the participants who have joined the call virtually. This would be a Teams call, and then this application is actually calling the APIs of Teams to surface information about the total number of students who ought to be joining, how many are present or how many are absent. And the window on the left shows you feed from the live camera feed from the classroom. Let me play this, both the videos here. So over the course of time, the live feed captures information about the participants who have joined the class physically. You would notice that the graph below refreshes to show the updated status of all the participants as they come in. So what this also indicates is this is achieved by means of artificial intelligence and machine learning and custom vision in particular, which is helping us implement these capabilities. You notice that it takes away the drudgery involved in physical attendance tracking. And it also tracks information like at what point of time during the class a participant joined and when a participant leaves the class. So at any point of time, you also see that the total number of persons or participants in the class refreshes. So a couple of things that the machine learning here is doing. One is carry out a face recognition to be able to identify who's present and sort of help with the attendance tracking. The second is it takes the people count to track how many folks are there in the class and at what point of time someone came in and what point of time when they exited the class.
Perfect. Quick pause, Srikantan.
Yeah.
We're talking about how do we help, let's say, a teacher or a professor who's teaching the classroom understand the dynamics of what's happening in the class in real time, right? So end of the day, for them to get a sense of, hey, are people happy, are people sad, are people attentive, are people active? It's difficult to understand when they have a large classroom. And and I've been to certain institutions where for the professor, there is a large screen where they're seeing people who have joined online, and there are a set of people sitting in classroom. So it's become very difficult for them to kind of understand the overall pulse and also attendance tracking, right? It's quite, they do it for sure, it's manual. So with what you just showcased, a lot of automation there.
Right.
And so that the focus can be to teach and then worry about who's joined in, who's not joined in, attentive, not attentive. And also the best part is, I know this for the fact that a lot of teachers today, at the end of every month or a quarter, they're supposed to do an assessment of a child in a class, right? Or a student for that matter, in terms of, they write a short description in terms of how he or she was conducted, themselves in the last 2 to 3 months as part of parent-teachers meeting. Now, how do they know how the child kind of fared in the last 3 months in the classroom? Very difficult. So, you mentioned about understanding emotions of students in the class. So, how does that happen? I mean, you're tracking people for sure, but is there a way I can go and understand, hey, today this person attended, what's the emotion? Was he happy, sad? Was she happy, sad? So,
Yeah, that's a good question, Sandeep. So if you look at this particular tab here, what this lets you do is that at various points in time during the run of this particular class, you'll be able to capture the sentiment of the participants in them. For example, let me enter a value of 0.5 and then I say fetch, and then you would see a list of all inferences carried out on the sentiments that are captured from the student at that particular point in time. You'll notice that in this case, the values are neutral, which means that it's neither happy nor sad. Actually, sentiment analysis happening based on the face that is captured on the video from the video, and then you actually determine what is the general outlook of the student, whether it's happy or sad. And with this, you get an inkling of how things are, and probably you could make some course corrections and all that. While I say that, there also is this importance given to responsible AI in Microsoft, by which we want to make sure that we don't sort of take these things too far. So it's possible that we may tailor down some of these aspects, because we don't want to get into options which could lead to individual discrimination and all that. So we want to be very careful when we actually trade on this, and we'll make sure that those things are followed as we go through.
No, very, very valid point, Shrikant. In fact, the data is there for sure. Statistically, we understand the overall general pulse, the generalization actually there, not to pinpoint a student's emotions, and eventually that influences a teacher's, I would say, response to that child or the student as they go along. So very valid thought. Perfect. This is great. Again, the magic of computer vision coming in here. As you rightly said, influence can happen in the cloud or the edge, but preferably edge, because you're talking about video analytics here. So preferably it should happen at the edge, so that there's less data that goes to the cloud. Yeah, perfect. So quickly shifting gears, one of the, I would say, ask from students is, hey, give me access to compute environment, because as a student, I need to have access to a PC with a specific configuration for that matter, right? Not everything can happen on a specific laptop or a tablet of ours, but I should be able to dynamically kind of get an environment where I have access to the labs for that matter, which is backed by specific programming environment or a platform, and I want to stay productive. So how do I address that need? That's a global ask, right? And not every academic institutions kind of are in that on the stage where they want to give that environment to students. So how can we empower academic institutions to kind of go in that trail?
Sure. Actually, GitHub has an offering for the education sector. It's called GitHub for the Classroom. It is actually a code spaces education benefit for verified teachers. This means that a teacher who is approved as an educator on this global campus for teachers gets certain allowances. One is they can actually create a code spaces subscription, and they could have up to 50 students in that class. And then what they could do is, once they subscribe to this benefit, they could create an organization in GitHub and then associate all their students to this particular organization. And that entitles each students to a 2-core virtual machine running in the cloud in the GitHub subscription. So let me walk you through a demo of that. So let's imagine that I'm the instructor and I've logged in using my CodeSpaces subscription. So on the landing page, you would see that there are so many CodeSpaces that have been provisioned for the students. And when you actually click on this particular 3 buttons, you see that you have the option to open this in a browser, which means that in case I'm a student logged in, I could open this in the browser. And what it does is that it takes me to the lab in the cloud. You see that it is actually starting that lab PC for the student. It just takes a couple of seconds, because it is actually starting up from, it is actually shut down, and then we just need to bring it up. And then the beauty of this is that the students could regularly work on this lab PC, and then they actually incrementally make changes. For example, in this case, you could imagine they're working on a project that involves the use of Azure Cognitive Services. So they can look at, let's say they could author their code in the familiarity of the VS Code environment, and then they could integrate with Git, for example, and then save all their changes. And the state of what they have done on this particular machine gets saved. Okay, so that's why, so they could actually safely leave this machine alone, and then by default, after a certain period of unuse, it's going to shut down in the cloud. And then the next time they click on the button, it just comes all over again, and all their state is completely retained. So apart from the lab PC, there also is an offering called the GitHub Student Developer Pack, which means that it empowers a student who's a part of this program to host and run a virtual event with all the necessary tools required to do the job. And they can actually also host virtual hackathons in the cloud, and then they can enroll participants and then make sure they're able to cover the 9 yards in terms of what needs to be done to run the hackathon. And then optionally, they could also choose to open this locally on their VS Code on their laptops in case they happen to have one. And then so it's like actually their local, their laptop as well as the cloud PC working in tandem to give them the best possible experience that one could imagine for.
Perfect. In fact, Shrikant, if you look at academic institutions, they have a lab, right? Let's consider computer science. They have a lab, and typically there's an administrator who goes and updates most of the missions. They probably would have spun off virtual mission there, but it's not easy to kind of provision VMs at the click of a button and with different configurations. So for administrator in an academic institution, this becomes so easy to have variants of your cloud labs in the cloud, so that on the need basis they give access to a student, so that student stays productive. Students they don't have to worry about, hey, how do I set up environment instead of looking at how to solve this problem. So environment is given to them out of the box. Not the students, right? Even I would say the teaching fraternity, even they need to stay productive, of course, right? So how do we equip them with like a cloud PC, right? So which probably is their environment in the cloud. It is persisted, and anytime they switch, when they switch subjects, they can switch to specific cloud PC, or the same cloud PC can pretty much have all the configuration. So I know this is dominantly what we showed was developer centric, but let's talk about educators, right? They may not need everything that a developer needs, but at the high level, as a educator, they need a infrastructure in the cloud that can be accessible from anywhere on any device. So cloud PC, is that what would help us do that?
So we just, yeah, you're right, Sandeep. So in fact, we just gave an experience of the classroom where you use the cloud PC for actual development purposes. And then you also have this notion where at home or wherever, okay, I'm a student who's constantly on the move, and then I need to have the familiarity of the Windows desktop wherever I go. And then I'm still able to connect securely to the content that my college has actually hosted for me. In which case, I would like to be able to, while on the move, I would be carrying my iPad, or could be sort of carrying any laptop, for example. I should still be able to seamlessly access that content. So which is where the power of Windows 365 Cloud PC comes into play, which enables me to, by the click of a button, be able to instantaneously provision a Windows desktop for myself, and which can be accessed using an RTP client from any of these devices that I just mentioned. So yeah, so that's the power of the Cloud PC. And I could also be a developer, or probably a student who is sort of very much into Microsoft technologies, and I use the tools day in and day out. And then I also want to have a desktop which has sufficient capacity with which I can install tools like VS Visual Studio, which is quite heavy from that perspective, and the SQL Server Management Studio. And so I get that experience right there in the cloud, and then I'm able to work with them and sort of work on my projects as well.
Perfect. See, two things. One is, people always kind of went towards virtualized desktops, but there is a lot of plumbing required to make it a reality. Cloud PC kind of democratizes that to a greater extent. That means, I don't have to worry about, hey, how to set up a virtualized environment, but click of a button, you have a PC in the cloud, you give access to anybody who needs it, and they're good to go. There's less of a plumbing required from, let's say, the administrative, I would say, a team, and for them it becomes easier to spin off a cloud PC, as you said, right?
I agree.
Awesome, awesome. So quickly now, one other, I would say, important application which we missed, which in my view is a super app. It's Teams, right? As students, that becomes like a one-stop shop for everything that they do in the world of education, right? Talking to their teachers, attending classes, looking at documents, and in fact, looking at assignments, attending to that. All the stuff happens in the comfort of Teams. And if there is one element which is a dire need for students, is search, right? Now, we have cognitive search, right? If you look at in the world of academia, there is variety, right? There are videos, there are content in text, there are content in images, there are audio clips. Now, for somebody who's attending multiple subjects, class, etc., information is just getting piled up on a daily basis. How do we ensure students can search at the comfort of, let's say, a chatbot, which will become like a companion for that student and ask me anything kind of a interface? That means I want to understand, hey, where was Pythagoras theorem taught, right? Which class? And I need access to that video. So boom, you do a search, and that video kind of is given as a link. It also points to in the video saying where is the Pythagoras theorem mentioned in the video. So let's talk about that. How does one build that? That's typically, in my view, is a dire need across institutions, because they're sitting on wealth of information, but the search facade is something which is missing.
Sure. Yeah, you brought up some good points, Sandeep. And in fact, this is where the power of Microsoft Teams, in conjunction with the AI ML capabilities that Microsoft has actually come up with in terms of cognitive services and video analytics, really comes to the floor, to the fore, and then they work very well together. And so we are able to seamlessly sort of index all the videos that have been generated for all that content, and then we are able to sort of tag those with the relevant content. And also on particular frames where a particular topic was taught, actually it's also indexed based on that. And cognitive services magically it's like a free text search on top of this kind of information, and then a user could very easily use this interface and be able to look for specific topics or look for specific teachers who have actually taught a subject. Or when a particular session happened, because they recollect that, oh, I attended a particular session and I want to sort of replay it for myself again. So all these experiences are very easily facilitated using the power of Microsoft Teams in conjunction with cognitive services.
Awesome, Srikanth, that's great. So let's summarize before we kind of conclude. We spoke about 3 or 4 things. Number one, classroom of the future, right? So in hybrid environment, how do we equip academic institutions with the power of computer vision so that they can track people online and in person? In terms of attendance, in terms of the spatial analysis itself, how many are there in the class, what's their sentiment, etc. And of course, that was focused on, as you rightly said, responsible AI design principles, right? That's number one. Number two, we spoke about GitHub code spaces for a student. How do we empower them with labs in the cloud, with access to VS Code, and of course, the tool of choice in terms of database, management studios, etc. Number three, cloud PC, which in my view is a big deal, because as academic institutions, for educators and students, how do we kind of give them access to a PC which is private to them and evidence of what they're doing in the world of technology, and that will be the asset that they take through the curriculum, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Number four, we spoke about the power of Microsoft Teams. Yes, that becomes a one-stop shop, a super app for everything that a student does in a classroom in the academic world. Of course, what we also spoke about is the semantic search, right? End of the day, information all over the place. So how do we ensure, irrespective of the variety, because information is in the form of your video, text, images, audio, etc. So a quick search, students should be able to get a response in terms of the content access, right?
Exactly.
Perfect. Awesome, Srikanth. This is great. Thank you so much. And with that, for all viewers, thank you so much for joining us today. Have a wonderful Future Application Summit, and we look forward to hosting you sometime soon at the Tech Center. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Have a great summit.
Bye.
See you then. Bye.